The question I put to Andrew, and it's something that I was reflecting on throughout the morning, and the way that they're structuring this is for a potential or a future coalition government, if they win, to essentially nationalise the assets. A student of politics and history, as you are, this is quite an ideological shift for the Liberal Party particularly.
It's a big shift for the Liberal Party, but they've seen what's happened with the privatisation of assets. There is a grave suspicion among the population now about what happened to the electricity system after those assets were privatised. And some of that's real and some of that's imagined, but that's part of what the population, I think, is thinking now. They want government to run these things again. There are such things as essential service. And Kieran, this is one point that all journalists need to get, and that is we have never been given a total system cost by the Labor Party for the system that it is trying to build. Now, I asked the Treasurer about that again today. He mentioned a number, $250 billion, but that's not one that the government has generated. There is another number which Peter Dutton's talked about, which is $1.7 trillion by the time we get to 2030. The Labor Party government needs to be pressed on what the cost of its system is. It can't be allowed to get away with the fact that this policy by the Liberal Party isn't costed. The Labor Party's policy isn't costed. And who gets the return on the investment? How do we pay for the assets that need to be built? As I say, there's no cheap energy future, and we've seen that in what's happening to the wholesale price. In future, with the system that's being built by the Labor Party now, what we will see is that the variable renewable energy will not set the price in the marketplace. Gas will, as it did last night when the sun was down and the wind was still. Guess what? They were burning diesel in South Australia.
When you look at that costing debate, though, you know this is where the government will go, that there's no dollar figure here, that there's no detail beyond the sites. While we've made the comparison, Andrew and I were talking about the 1993 fight back and John Hewson, the last really massive roll of the dice from opposition in terms of all the detail, but that was detailed, as you know. This is big and this is a gamble, but some of the detail not there. So is this part of the strategy, part of the tactics from Peter Dutton to say, we'll give you the vision, but we're going to fill in the other elements like the cost and so on later so that our opponents can't undermine us from the get-go?
I guess the question we've got to ask here, though, is whose agenda are we talking about today, and whose agenda have we been talking about for some time now? The Labor Party government seems to be adrift at the moment. It wants to talk about any other policy but its own. And if you do focus in on it, Kieran, focus in on it. Focus on what happened this week on the energy grid. Focus on the fact that we got down to 11% of additional supply. If we got under 10, it becomes critical. And we saw the price again rise dramatically last night. When it's cold and when it's still, this is the issue we're going to have. So as I say, we need a total system cost from the government. We also need a system cost from the opposition, and then we can have a clear debate. But the starting point has to be, let's get one out of the government as well. That has to be asked.
Indeed. Chris Uhlmann, appreciate it. As always, we'll see you next week. Thanks so much.